Hello everyone, welcome back to another Victober video and welcome back to another of my Desert Island Victorian Reads videos. This one is going to be different. Heather and I just weren't able to coordinate our schedules in a way that we could record together, but I was so delighted that she figured out a way to film on her own and then she sent it over to me. And if you have not watched Heather's channel, you are going to be in for such a treat. They are just so visually appealing in addition to having content that I really love. Heather has such a calming presence in her videos, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing about the books that she selected. And in addition to that, I did want to link down below. Heather and I were chatting different Victorian literature things, and I had asked her if she had ever visited Rudyard Kipling's home in Vermont. He had a home in Vermont. And she said, yes, actually, I even vlogged it. And this was before I knew about her channel. And I immediately went to the vlog and was completely enchanted by it. And so I thought this would be such a great kind of supplemental viewing for Victober participants. If you want to get a beautiful glimpse of this house and then also some looks at some beautiful editions of the Jungle Books by Kipling. I think you're really going to enjoy it. But now over to Heather, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy getting to watch Heather talk about her Victorian Desert Island reads.
Hi, my name is Heather and I'm from my channel Heather Tribe. I would like to share the 5 books, the 5 Victorian books that I would have with me were I to be stranded on a deserted island. Thank you, Kate Howe, for inviting me to do this. It's been a lot of fun trying to whittle down only 5 books, the 5 books that I would take with me. But here they are, so I hope you enjoy them. The first one that I'm going to begin with is Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, but not just The Jungle Book, in particular the second Jungle Book. The second Jungle Book is not really spoken about very often, but for me it is so wonderful. Mowgli is older, and I would probably say that the second Jungle Book is more of a YA read than the Jungle Book is. In the first Jungle Book, you get wonderful stories, you get Rikki Tikki Tavi along with the Mowgli stories, and you have some fantastic beautiful stories, Tumai and the elephants, as well as the white seal and others that I really love. And then you also see Mowgli and his adventures and how he came to the jungle, and you meet all the characters. And it's really great for anyone who loves adventure stories. When you get to the second Jungle Book, however, first of all, the writing just explodes. It becomes so beautiful. But also the second Jungle Book, you're dealing with things that are somewhat more emotional. In Mowgli's life, he is having to decide whether to stay in the jungle and be part of the jungle or return back to human society. He comes to get to know his mother a little bit, and he starts to wonder where he belongs. Another thing that's really wonderful about the second Jungle Book is the relationship with the python, Kaa, the snake, is really wonderful to see how what you thought was perhaps a dangerous creature in Mowgli's life, you come to learn that Mowgli has come to trust Kaa and Mowgli have actually become really good friends. And in a way, Kaa almost becomes sort of a mother figure to Mowgli, but also a very protective character in his life. And when you get to the end of the Mowgli stories, it is just so emotional. It's one of those books where I just wept at the end. It was so beautiful. On top of that, besides the Mowgli stories, you also have The Miracle of Purun Bhagat, which is about a politician who leaves behind power and wealth and heads into nature, into the mountains. And that one gets quite exciting. And then you also have this really wonderfully eerie tale called The Undertakers that centers on a particular man-eating crocodile. You also have a story set up north, and it takes you all over the same way that the first Jungle Book did. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book. I love this version with the illustrations of Stuart Tresillian. They're just beautiful. There are full color illustrations, but not just full color illustrations. There are also illustrations in green and white. Here's Mowgli with Baloo. I love that bear as well. And this is from the second Jungle Book. Here's one of the other stories that I told you about, the Undertakers, about the crocodile in the Nile. And here's a lovely 3/4 illustration of Mowgli and Kaa, which I think is just beautiful. And yeah, it's just a wonderful edition. It has both the first and second Jungle Book, as well as some of the Just So stories. The Cat That Walked by Himself is here. There's also that beautiful poem, If, that Rudyard Kipling wrote, as well as a great deal of information about Rudyard Kipling's life in Vermont when he wrote the Jungle Books. It also, by the way, has a wonderful foreword by Catherine Rundell. Well, if ever I'm on a deserted island, I think I'm going to need some courage, and that brings to mind Captain's Courageous, also by Rudyard Kipling. I wasn't really sure if this fits into Victorian, but it was written in the Victorian time period. I think it's 1897. By an English author. Rudyard Kipling was one of those authors that sort of straddled the Victorian and the Edwardian eras. And so I wasn't sure, but I think this does qualify. Anyway, it's about Harvey, and Harvey is traveling across the Atlantic with his mother. They're heading to Europe where Harvey is going to be educated. I believe he's in his teenage years. And he's a bit of a handful. His dad, unfortunately, is so busy with the business that he just doesn't get very much attention from his dad. And he roams around this boat, kind of causing mischief, and one day he falls off this boat. Luckily, he falls off while the boat that's carrying them to Europe is going through an area where there's a lot of fishing vessels. And he gets fished up and picked up by a fishing vessel. When he wakes up and comes to and is given a little bit of food, he is rather rude to the people that picked him up. He demands that they take him back to New York, but unfortunately that just cannot happen because it is May and it's high season for fishing, and they don't want to miss it because it is their livelihood. They'll lose all their money if they just head back to New York. So they decide, nope, I'm sorry, but you are stuck with us until September when we are done fishing and we head back to land. So Harvey has to become one of the crew and actually gets put to work. Now, he doesn't just get put to work, he actually gets paid for his work. So he gets the experience of earning money, of working and earning money for the first time. It's wonderful, and it has such a great effect on him as a young boy. It reminds me of, if you have ever seen Cars, the first Cars movie with Lightning McQueen and Doc Hudson, it reminds me very much of that sort of plot, where Lightning McQueen is, very sure of himself and rather rude, and he finds himself in a situation where he actually has to earn respect. This is the Junior Deluxe edition, and it's illustrated by Lawrence Beale Smith. And there's this one color illustration in the beginning, and then some rather wonderful line drawings throughout, full page as well as double page spreads, and they're just wonderful. If I find myself on a deserted island, I think I'm going to want a fantasy that just really takes me away, but also reminds me of heart and soul and what it is to be a human. And therefore, I would like to recommend The Water Babies. The Water Babies is a highly nostalgic read for me. This one was one of the first books that was ever read to me when I was a kid, and it mesmerized me. The idea of a chimney sweep who falls into water and is watched over by all the other water babies and makes friends with the lobsters and the fishes. And the whole beauty of it just absolutely spoke to me when I was a little girl. I have this version, which is an adapted version. I really love these illustrations by Mabel Lucy Atwell, and I wanted to show them to you. They're just absolutely gorgeous, and they have these full color illustrations throughout, but they also have Mabel Lucy Atwell's line drawings as well, which I think are gorgeous. I know some people can find the original version of The Water Babies perhaps a bit tedious. Charles Kingsley does use quite a bit of description in his story, but the story itself is just wonderful and such a nostalgic read for me. And I think this would be a wonderful one to have with me on a deserted island, just to remember my family and being young and just keep my soul intact. Then, of course, I'm sure I'm not going to be the only person to want to have this book with me. It is my ultimate comfort read, and that is Jane Eyre. But also, it's not just that it's comforting. I think I'm going to be rather lonely on a deserted island, and misery loves company, right? So I'm probably going to want the company of somebody else who is also very much feeling lonely most of the time, and that is Jane Eyre. I really love this book for so many reasons, but I have to say, being a character person, I think that's what appeals to me the most, is just being able to identify so much, not only with Jane Eyre, but Mr. Rochester, as well as so many of the characters in Jane Eyre. Even the ones that we tend to dislike, I can sort of put myself in their shoes and know how they're feeling. And I think that's what I really love about Charlotte Bronte's writing in Jane Eyre. I have this one that is illustrated by Fritz Eichenberg. Gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations throughout. And yeah, on my channel, I tend to focus on illustrators, and so that's why I am showing you so many illustrations. I'm just used to it. And then finally, a book that I read for the first time last year and absolutely loved is Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Again, we have somebody who is very lonely, making her way through life. This is such an amazing book. It's an epistolary novel, but not just an epistolary novel. It's sort of a nested epistolary novel. So it's someone is writing a letter telling the events that were also told to him within a letter, that sort of thing. This book begins in October, but it has beautiful seasonal descriptions throughout the whole year. So I'd probably call it an all seasons read. However, if pressed, and if you're not reading it for Victober, I would probably read it in December, because it has such a beautiful scene that happens in December with flowers that only bloom in December. And yeah, it would be kind of remarkable to read it around that time, I think. But it follows the life of a mysterious lady who shows up at Wildfell Hall with her son. She's a mystery. Nobody knows where she came from. She kind of keeps to herself. She doesn't open up to anybody. And because she doesn't, she becomes the focus of gossip. And there's one person that she cares enough about to actually clear the story with, and she writes this person a letter, and then we go into her real story. It was on my top 10 list last year, and it was just such a wonderful read. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And I love this Folio Society edition with illustrations by Valentina Cato. It's just beautiful. They're so wonderful. So that is the final of the 5 Victorian books that I would like to have with me if stranded on a deserted island. I would also love to have books that I have not read yet. And there are so many Charles Dickens that I would like to get to, as well as Thomas Hardy. There were so many that I could choose to have with me that would fill my time. Although I suppose I'd probably be looking for food most of the time. So anyway, thank you so much, Kate, for inviting me to do this, and I hope you are all doing well, and happy Victober. Bye.